Thank you so much for coming, everybody. My name is Matt Bogue. We're going to take a little journey down the user experience. It's something that's kind of taken over our lives with this small computer in our pocket. Screens are everything to us now in our society and throughout. So just kind of taking us down a bit of memory lane. It's going to be a bit fun to just get nostalgic about tech. And whenever you're trying to figure out the future, it's always good to kind of look at the past, how we got here, and especially how quick we got here, and how rapidly technology is kind of evolving, and it's just going to keep getting more and more rapid with AI and everything that's happening with that. So welcome, everybody. So a little bit about me. I'm a 90s kid, so born in 81. So I've just been able to see the evolution of technology and how it's been integrated into our lives and how it affects our lives from the start. So I've been in the industry for about 20 plus years. Currently a partner CCO at a company called Houdini Interactive, where I get to play with experiential marketing, how tech is blended into experiences at events like this. So events like trade shows, brand activations, different fun ways to use blended technology to tell a brand story, to tell anybody's story with an event, and to just do that effectively with data and something fun and tangible to play with. And I'm really excited to just always be here at Treefort. My wife and I have been coming for about 10 years. Been about 10 years, right? So have seen Treefort in its evolution. I see Sean back there. He kind of got me into Hackfort. Thanks for coming, buddy. And just to see how this festival has evolved, and then even down to the app that we all use to get around, that kind of user experience is getting integrated into every piece of our daily life. And it's good to look at that and see how that fits with us personally, but also how do we keep that human-centric? We get to this point where it's like, oh my God, I'm overwhelmed with all the tech that's out there that I can integrate into my life. And a lot of people, are like tech crazy people that are like, oh, I want to talk to my fridge. I want to talk to my washer and dryer. And using that technology in our lives makes it easier, streamlined. But with that comes this fast-paced life that we all live in today. So now we're kind of like, how do we take a step back? And we're going to talk a bit more about that. So go ahead and scan this QR code. You can learn a bit more about me. I remember playing around with this computer when I was a kid at one of my parents' first computers. You still have yours? Oh, you got it.
Basement, it still works.
Oh.
Which is Apple old. Anyways, I can go on and on about that.
Oh, those were beefy machines, right? Like you could barely pick it up, right?
Matt, I don't know if you do this. If you pull the back open on some of those, you can see the signatures of the guys who assembled it and tested it.
You're gonna have me over at your house and show me this,
yeah.
Okay? So yeah, I love the old computers, where we came from there. So we're gonna take a little walk down memory card lane. Actually, I'm gonna first raise your hand if you were kind of a part of this early integration of tech and computers. Okay, this is gonna hit hard for all you people out there. This is exciting. We're gonna start at the Stone Age of tech right here. So we got the abacus, the old way to calculate, the old press, just how clunky it was, but what we knew in those days, like we were creating user experience from day one in our own ways. And the amount that it evolved is wild and crazy to me. But the ancient times, even back to just old drawings in a cave to tell stories, to tell brand stories in their own way, back then, it's just to tell life stories, right? And that's what I always try to bring back into any UX that we have today, is telling a story. You know, we're all out here trying to tell stories with experiences that we create. And so the tree fort story to me doesn't stop with music. It goes all the way to the community that is Boise, and it takes a community to tell a story in the most in-depth way that we can possible. So let's give it up for the Stone Age, everybody. Come on. They started us off. Jumping into the dawn of the machines. So I just love these pictures here. I mean, can you imagine UX back then? To be a UX expert, you pretty much had to be a doctor back then. You know, you're in here and you see this picture here. Computers took up whole rooms, and you had to, I don't even know what they did in there, because I wasn't in it back then, but just to see where we came from, text commands, you know, the early computer games that I grew up, you know, Oregon Trail, but even before that, there were so many, you know, King's Quest. Anybody play these games? Remember them on the green? It was just all green screen, right? So that was the 40s to the 70s. Like, just think about that. Not that long ago, about 50 years ago, you know, 60 years ago is kind of when this madness started. And if you think about it, you know, that's a lifetime, or less than a lifetime. So it's pretty insane how far we've come, even from that time, the 1950s, 60s, 70s. I feel like the advertising back then was a little better, you know, but you got to bring those big glasses back. Actually, they're coming back, you know, big glasses. But yeah, I mean, it was insane, you know, growing up in elementary school, middle school, into, okay, the graphical user interface. Windows versus Apple versus Mac. Are you a Mac? This started the whole cult trend of, are you a Mac user or a Windows user? And if you're a Windows user, I don't want to talk to you. Like, let's walk away. So my first, I learned graphic design on the iMac G3 there, that, you know, the bubble. I think that's my favorite one so far, you know, aesthetically. I mean, let's go back to the bubble. This is too small for me, right? Let's get some color into it. Yeah. And then we all remember the old ransom note websites, right? You got you got blinky text coming at you, coming from all sides, web banners coming at you. And it's basically just like, we didn't know what the hell we were doing, right? We were just like, information, we can get information out there, you know, in the best way possible using a burst, right? Just burst it in people's faces. And that's what we did. And that's all we knew how to do at that time, when in the early days of, you know, AOL Online. Oh, this is where I played this. Everybody remembers this. All right, there we go. And you gotta kind of sit there, wait for it. I can't ask Jeeves yet, you know, it's like, okay. It's still going, wait for it. You know, the amount of patience we had to have just to ask Jeeves something was insane, right? Okay, let me see if my keynote.
Phone up and cancel it.
So I like to think that I lost hearing because of that noise and not because of being a drummer, right? So early online communities, let me get back to where I'm at here. So the birth of online communities, the birth of, I can sell things online now, and all you're doing is clicking through links to get there. But user experience wasn't quite there yet because it was clunky. It was not cool to look at. I know it's coming back a little bit, that style of just like things collaged on the page, but hopefully it doesn't come back to the extent that it was. And here we are, the mobile mania era. So here we are in the 2000s. This is when I first graduated high school. Everybody remember when the phones started coming in, the smartphones? Raise your hand. And if you were in high school when that happened, raise your hand. Middle school. Yeah. Okay. So those of you that it came when you were fully in your adulthood, I'd like to just, do you have a story of like how did you feel when this happened? Did you feel like intruded upon, or did you feel like just out of touch, or how'd you feel?
It was like Star Trek.
Were you like, oh, this is the new age, I'm excited.
It was like Star Trek.
Yeah.
Star Trek, yeah.
Cool, but we still lived in real life.
Yeah,
We didn't have the screens, so to us it was just a tool.
okay.
But nowadays, you're so inundated with it, it is your life.
It is your life, yeah. It's become such a part of our lives. Sean?
Matt, I just remember when that first iPhone came out. I was in college. It was like my senior year.
Yeah.
My buddy got one. You know, and I'm a big Apple fan, right?
Yeah.
I didn't have AT&T, so I couldn't get one. But the second I touched the phone and did like the pinch to zoom in a browser, I was like, this is gonna change everything. You know, because
Right.
you could load any website. Before that, you could load browsers on like a Palm or whatever, but it was very funky.
Yeah.
Apple made it snappy and fast, and it optimized, you know.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
I mean, dude, it was nuts. And
Changed the
having
game.
An iPhone, having your music, having I mean,
Yeah.
they
You gotta
crushed
think
it.
about just before the iPhone, the
Yeah.
BlackBerry, the rollerball.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Keyboard.
Yeah, your little pen on the side, you can, you know. I remember my first business with my friend. She's like, I gotta get a BlackBerry. And I just remember seeing her over there just like, and I'm like, my thumbs can't type that small, you know? And even my thumbs back then was just like, I can't type this small on this like little screen, right? And it started very small, but before that, it was Motorola Razr all day. Anybody?
Oh,
Yeah, flip it out. That thing's super slim in your pocket. So again, this is kind of the start of the intrusion, I'm going to call it the intrusion of tech in our lives and how we rely on it today. And then it leads us into the explosion of apps for everything, right? Apps for days. And we're already, it's insane, I'll get there, but like apps, no one wants to download an app anymore unless it's for something that they truly use on their day-to-day. So even the app explosion is on its way out a little bit to figure out what that next thing is, which is connected devices and things like that. So just the breadth of that is like already 20 years now. You know, we were talking 60 years ago, down to 20, 15 years. We're looking into like what's gonna happen in 5 years, right? So mobile mania goes on. And throughout the 2000s, again, throughout that kind of 10, 15 year span, the integration of AI, smart computers, smart devices, like I was saying, voice assistants, you can now talk to all your things. And that all kind of started happening in the first kind of 2000s through now, really. And so that has opened up so much for us to where it's like, I can't keep up with it, right? And I also don't want to talk to my fridge. So it's really crazy, really cool. But on the scale of, you know, who's still excited about how much you can do with technology in your lives and how, you know, is it starting to get above, you know, raise your hand if you're stoked on it. You're excited to connect all of your things. Yeah. Okay, we got a couple people. Raise your hand if it's starting to scare you. Okay, exactly. So, Sean, I knew you were going to raise your hand for the first one. You might be a robot right now. Like, this might not be you in real, okay. So, And that goes into ChatGPT. All AI is the thing, right? That's the next thing right now. And that's the point where the technology starts to create an identity a bit, and you start hearing these stories of, AI having feelings and all. It's like, it's going to get to the point where you're going to be talking to your robot at home like a real human being, or feeling like it, right? And then just how much we rely on it too this is the point, and it may be too late, but when we start to think about these products and different things that we want to put out there in the world with AI integration, with some of this future technology integration, part of me thinking through the user experience and how we apply that to our lives is, how do we bring that back to having more of a human-centric idea around that experience? And how do we figure out how to work with it, but not let it take over the human side of us, right? And what we want, and not lose that. Because as soon as we start to rely on technology for, so much in our lives, if that gets taken away, then we lose a lot of ourselves, right? So I just ask you to think about that as, if you're in the industry of creating user experience through technology, and it even just applies to your life today, of like a balance. There's always needs to be a balance of things. And so while I'm really excited about technology, I'm also really fucking scared about it. So, but scared isn't a bad thing, right? It's a power that we have to yield. You think back to like superheroes, G.I. Joes, the power is in your hands, it depends on what you want to do with it. Are you going to be a villain, or are you going to be a superhero, right? And then that even goes into other worlds, right? So now we have VR, AR, metaverse, and what does that future look like, right? So we're trying to figure out how to integrate AR into everybody's day-to-day. So you think about wearables, where you're wearing a glass, there are wearables out there right now to where you can see a digital overlay over the real life. And how does that help you in your life? But we've all seen the Black Mirror episode where, everybody's doing their socials, and they're just like, it's tailoring how they communicate and how they interact with other human beings. And so that's where we need to draw some lines potentially. And there's gonna be those that lean heavily into it, and they're like, hell yeah, I wanna see you, I wanna see your rating on my X account, Twitter account, whatever, my socials. And this is where we need to just say, how far do we wanna lean into it? And I think we're all gonna be on different levels of that. But I just wanna read my notes here on this card here. What reality am I in? Which pill did I take? And where the hell am I, okay? So this leads into crafting meaningful experiences in a digital world. And that's the world that I get to play in day to day of, a brand or a company will come to us and they need to solve a certain thing or tell a certain story, whether that be at an event like a trade show, brand activation, or just like an art event like Tree Fort, to where we get to say, hey, what are you trying to solve here? What are you trying to integrate into this to make it the best experience possible for the people that are coming to it? And then get to figure out how to blend certain technologies to create that. So as you can imagine, when we do that, usually the first thing we do is just throw a bunch of ideas on the wall and see what sticks. And it's a really fun and creative way to kind of think about it, but think about it in the sense, and I always come back to what I'm talking about today is, how is it going to be meaningful, and how is it going to bring people together in a more meaningful way, in person, IRL, right? And part of that is just privacy concerns. I want to go back a slide because that's really what we're dealing with here is data, data being shared. And this is where also it gets scary, right? Is your data, how to protect your data in the best ways possible, and making sure that we have ownership over our data is something to kind of think about. So how do we craft this into something that is going to be meaningful for the event? So I'm going to ask you a few questions here. Again, how many times did you check your phone today before breakfast? How many of you look at your phone when, like, the first thing you wake up, you're looking at your phone? I'm right there too. I try to tell myself, don't look at that thing, but right? So you look at it, and what do you look at? Your calendar, like what you're doing today, social media, anything else? Music? Are you playing music?
On a good day.
Yeah, so the social media one is where I'm just like, I need to cut back on, and I feel like I've done a good job on that. And how many of you feel like you're lost without this thing in your pocket?
So lost. Physically lost.
Yeah.
Without GPS.
We need to talk. Yeah. So again, that's proof that it's starting to take shape in our lives, and it has taken shape in our lives to be this kind of runs a lot of our lives, right? And so in thinking about how to use this within meaningful experiences that we can create together, let's just take a little journey down all the areas that we use this for in our daily lives. So communication, we all know socializing has become fully digital to the point where a lot of people are just really freaking awkward in person, right? Once you see someone face to face, we're not as prone to be comfortable in that situation because of how much we live online. Our workplace communication, and so that's, Slack, Google, doing a really good job to be efficient at work and bringing people together in that way. And then the dating game. I got married before this, the Tinders started happening, thank God. But how many, I mean, no offense to those that are using it, but I mean, these two met each other on, yeah? Yeah, anybody else meet each other on like a dating app? Okay, cool. Anybody used it and glad you're off of it now? Okay, yeah. No, I'm with the people, okay? So yeah, I mean, I've thought about making like a fake account and just kind of seeing what's up, but we'll talk about that later. We should do like a couples one, That's, anyways, tangent.
My brother and his partner on Valentine's Day, they
Yeah.
both made accounts and tried to find each other.
Yeah. Oh, that's cute.
It was really funny. They were trying to match.
Did they? That could go sour real quick. Like you swipe the wrong way, on your partner. I'm like, where'd you get that picture? I haven't seen that one before. Commerce. So we're all shopping online. Amazon. Who's shopping on Amazon like weekly, right? That's a lot lower than I like to see that. Okay. Banking. Doing all your banking online. Depositing checks. Ordering your food. This more in bigger cities. We live in Spokane, Washington, with a grocery store right across the street. If I'm ordering food to my doorstep, we got a problem there. Get outside, walk to the store, right? Entertainment. So you got your news consumption, signing up, getting a movie ticket, and then education is a big one to be able to, YouTube, and it's a great way to learn now. And then you have your transportation, Ubers, Lyfts, Limes. Who limed here today? Oh yeah, I love it. And then healthcare, events, and the list goes on, right? So this gives you just a glimpse at how much it is integrated into our lives. And while a lot of this I really love and really helps me connect without having to like go to the doctor's office or without having to walk when I'm like 20 minutes late to something, you know. You can just jump in an Uber, right? And so the benefits and the drawbacks, productivity and efficiency are two big ones to being able to use technology in our day-to-day lives. And then the instant gratification point is both good and bad, I feel like, because it's changing our culture. Like you guys feel it. You know, you can't focus on one thing for like 20 minutes. We're so used to just swiping to get to the next thing, and you kind of see that in the festival sense too, of just like, there's so much to see and you want to just get to the next thing. And maybe you're watching a band for like 10 minutes and you're like, okay, I got a little glimpse, I'm ready to go to the next one. You know, you have your Spotify, and the whole music industry is just at your fingertips, right? And it's making us not listen to full albums anymore. And how many people love the full album thinking of music, right? I mean, we all do. Like, even if you weren't, you know, however young you are, we like that, people that put thought into a full album sense. And so part of my talk today is really just to remind us all of what makes us human and to enjoy these, you know, different efficiencies and ways to quickly get information, but also pull it back to enjoying those things together as in person as much as possible, right? And then at what point do we draw the line and design for a balance? You know, I feel like the time is now, and the time has been in the last 15 years of really thinking through that when we're creating. You have to excuse me, I'm like getting allergies. Like March is the time to get like the spring allergies. So crafting memorable experiences and designing effective user experiences. There's a long list of stuff here. I'm not gonna get too crazy on each of these bullet points, but user-centered design. So that's understanding needs, behaviors, goals set for what you're trying to create. So this is kind of going into creating a tech experience for a real life experience that I get to do on the day-to-day. And even creating anything digital, right? And then usability, it's gotta be ease of use, thinking through how someone uses something, whether it be your phone, you know, an augmented reality experience or a touchscreen, into how does that integrate into real life things like getting active while you're doing an experience, right? Consistency, trying to stay consistent with the brand look and feel. That really helps with really honing in on that brand and making sure that you're communicating that effectively. And the hierarchy of your information, you know, not just blasting people with a ton of information without any order to it. So just thinking through that and simplifying that as much as possible. And feedback from users is always a big thing to think about. That feedback loop of did I do something right or wrong, and information along those lines. Accessibility, so making sure you're thinking about different disabilities so that anybody can come up and experience the experience you're creating. Clarity, so making sure your voice, your content is clear, and you're not getting too much into the weeds, like my notes right here. Control, making sure that you know, you're able to control that journey with the user, because, you know, if you put too much in there and you have too many webs, you know, people start to get lost and then they lose the message you're trying to give. Having flexibility, so this is around, you know, super users like Sean and some friends over here that are tech savvy people, but also being flexible to those that may not have experienced that thing. And so making sure that you give proper instruction and proper notification of the journey you're wanting them to go down, and being able to hold their hand a bit. Error prevention, that's always something to think about of, hey, in certain different use cases, is someone gonna go down this path, and trying to stop that before it happens, right? And making sure that your UX, your user experience is thinking through that. And then aesthetic, minimalistic design, that's one of my favorite things, of just making sure it looks fun and it's fun to use, and that it's minimal enough to not get caught in the weeds. But we're seeing a lot of design these days that's like kind of on the boundary of minimalistic, minimal but also abstract. So again, finding that fine line between those and making sure that it's you can get through it. And then recognition over recall, making sure that you can recognize reliance on memory. So as you're going through, making sure that your buttons and everything that you put in there is in the proper place, so that as you're going through the experience, you don't really have to think about it too much. It just kind of flows, and that information flows to you. And then making sure there's context behind what you're doing, as well as trust and credibility. That's a big one, you know, especially in the digital age. Trusting something that you're putting your information into, that they're credible, and you're not just signing up for 20 million emails, even though you probably will, you know. And so on that other end, how do I unsubscribe? Raise your hand if you like going through your emails and unsubscribing to stuff. Yeah, that's me too. I noticed you didn't raise your hand, honey. I've seen your email box. So the big four that I always look into with enhancing experiences is gamification's the top. Everybody loves playing a game, whether it's a simple game or a complex game. But we all kind of grew up on games, whether that be like a board game. And it just makes an experience and a brand story, telling a brand story, fun. So anytime you can integrate a game and make it fun and exciting for people, you're able to tell that story a little better. That's going to stick within their memory banks. And then education, always educating your user on, you know, what story you're telling, what kind of message you want to send, with whatever goals that are set by a client. Multi-sensory engagement. So the more senses you use with an experience, the more they're going to remember what message you're trying to give them. So thinking through, you know, a good example of this is doing a game where you're at like a trade show, you have a big screen in front of you and it's all motion censored, and you're kind of running through a given path, and you have education coming up, but you're running as well as selecting, as well as guiding yourself through a journey by using exercise, right? And so you're using your senses on those sides, and then making sure it's simple. Because not a lot of people, you know, unless it calls for something more complex, but just trying to be as simple as possible, simple mechanics, so that people, you know, again, a lot of people get, you know, if it gets too complex, they may just be over it and just leave and not even want to go down that journey. So crafting memorable experiences. I just wanted to bring in some good examples of popular shared UX experiences that we kind of live through our jobs and our day-to-day. Raise your hand if you recognize any of these experiences. Okay. So as a designer, I use a lot of Figma, Adobe XD, all the Google Workspace apps. I got to say, Google has done a brilliant job at combining that experience so that it's very streamlined and a good way to collaborate at the workplace, as well as a lot of these right here: Slack, Miro, Asana, Zoom, and then going over to your social media. Everybody knows all about those. And so what makes a powerful experiential marketing campaign? Knowing your target audience, so going in, knowing the people you're going to be talking to. And a lot of times, the audience is very broad. And so that's where you need to go back and tie into, what ties us all together on the age spectrum, but also industry spectrum. What are you targeting? And then clear and compelling brand stories, just making sure that you're very direct on your message to tell that story. And that could be as simple as just playing a game that has the mascot of the brand integrated into the game. You're at this thing, it may be like a boring trade show conference, but you kind of go in and you play this platformer game. And then that allows the ambassador to talk to you about the brand. And that's just a way to get people into your booth and stand out. And making sure that it's a unique and memorable concept. So that's kind of a hard one today. A lot of people are doing a lot of different things. So just making sure that we're doing our homework, always experiencing, always going to events and things just to see what's out there in the world, to just continuously learn and kind of teach ourselves what the next big thing is. And then active participation and engagement, making sure that it stays engaging and that you're catching their attention. And then this goes through a lot of different things that previously I just talked about, but just seamlessly integrating your experience into their journey to make sure that brand story sticks. Some tech examples for doing experiential marketing campaigns, gamification, like I said, AR, VR, XR. We use blended technologies. So sometimes you're integrating camera sensors to physical buttons, to multiple different technologies that you're blending together. And then the event activations, so those all kind of tie into that. Welcome. So I'm just going to jump into a couple different examples of some recent experiences. This one was at the recent South by. Anybody go to South by Southwest this year? No? Okay. I've gone the last couple years, and what I love about South by is the amount of brand activations that happen that really just kind of pull you into a movie or a series or anything that they're creating. They usually go all out. So this one was to kind of market the alien Earth. And so FX created this whole scene. I didn't go this year, but I just kind of checked this out. I was like, that's pretty cool. And you get to go through a whole journey and story to kind of learn about the show, as well as some interactive components to put yourself into the role and immerse yourself into that show. This is experience that my company created about 3 years ago. It was a brand pop-up experience for Sonic Prime on Netflix. And this was a really fun, just kind of video photo booth type experience where you get to sign up through a queue, and then the ambassador kind of sends you through. And you get to run with Sonic. Sonic kind of tells you to run in place. And the whole premise of Sonic Prime is jumping from Shadowverse to Shadowverse. And so it prompts you to jump. And so we have a lot of really fun footage of like kids and people like running with Sonic, jumping different Shadowverses. And then when they do, it takes you to a fully different view on the side with a bunch of different content. And that kind of took you through 3 different Shadowverses, and then you get sent a video to kind of share to socials and to have from your experience. So again, another fun way to integrate, getting active with technology, with other, your friends and family. And this is a recent experience that we created for ResMed. ResMed is a sleep tech company, sleep apnea. And this was, we created a sleep lounge for CES. So ResMed came to us, they're like, we typically just put our products out and it's very corporate. And this year we want to do something different, create an experience that people are going to want to come to. And a way to get people into the lounge is we created a sleep persona test to go through various questions to get your sleep persona. And then at the end, you're given a bear, lion, wolf, dolphin, and a QR code to learn more about your persona and learn about your sleep habits, as well as a fun game that you could play and get up on a leaderboard. And then we were able to, a lot of times with the trade show experiences, we just do the tech experience, but we were able to do the full booth build and design of the brand of the booth. So kind of integrating that whole cloud sleep lounge feel. We even fabricated some clouds and had some like LED cloud integrated into that just to kind of feel like this dreamy kind of sleep lounge world. So that was a lot of fun to be a part of. And then this brings me to key takeaways, and then I'm going to open it up to some questions. So the importance of UX and effective human-centered design, and just making sure that we're thinking about how we blend technology in bringing us together as humans, and making sure we keep human-centric in mind when we're designing experiences, especially using a ton of tech. Strategies for crafting engaging experiences. So making sure that we're thinking through all the ways to tell a brand story in the most effective way possible. And then just thinking about the power of experiential marketing. So not just doing something online, but thinking about how do we bring this to the physical world, because that's where we really can come together and talk about a brand, talk about an experience, and experience that technology together. And then enhancing human connection through technology, not replacing it. And then evolving to the future we want to live in. So, did that hit home for anybody? Figuring out how we use technology in this crazy world that we live in today. And I always try to think about how do we take a step back? How do we look at our landscape of what we have to use and figure out the right things to use for the right purpose? Any questions out there?
Matt, I have one. I mean,
Yeah.
What's your take on, like a lot of Gen Z is kind of going backwards with their technology. Like dumb phone is now like a pretty common used word, like either using an old Razor style phone or there's new smartphones that aren't smartphones.
Yeah.
That you can only do text and email, or what do you see that trend continuing? I'm like interested in it personally.
Yeah.
Even just for tree fort, I was thinking about getting just a normal cell phone.
A burner phone? Yeah.
Burner phone, just keeping my phone out.
Yeah.
To alleviate that distraction. But I'm interested in how we can like use these modern technologies like AI to simplify what's in our pocket.
Oh, totally. And we were just having this conversation this morning. I definitely believe we're going in that direction, because like anything, you go down the road of like, oh my God, this is crazy. And we get, as humans, we're like, get so far into it and we're like, okay. And we're at the point now where it's like, okay, how do we pull this back a bit to really help us, come to, and again, it's going to be a separate kind of thing. Like some people are going to still go down that tech road and be okay with that. But I think a lot of us, and looking at the hands that were raised of like how much this is, going beyond what it was meant to do. How do we pull back from that, And I do love seeing that that's happening. I've thought about doing the same thing. And so, yeah, I definitely think that's going to happen. And I'm for it. Like, I mean, I could jump on my computer if I need to do that. We could always use these for good use cases and experiences, but getting to the point where you can only go so far having such a powerful piece of equipment in your pocket. I think we're also going to look at how does this affect me medically? We're already seeing it, right? Having that much power in your pocket is going to affect our bodies. And so I think we're going to learn a lot of that and then pull back a bit from it and figure out what's going to be the most efficient, or not the most efficient, but the safest way to use technology. Any other questions?
I don't know any questions, but I
Yeah.
have a couple comments if you'll allow me. I didn't know
Definitely.
what to expect when I came here, so.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
I utilize technology. I'm not a coder, developer, any of you really geeky folks, which I admire, and that's great. That was a compliment. But it's, for me, I still, and I have always perceived it as a tool. Like if you're building a house, you need to have do that.
Yeah,
If you're using this, if this becomes your life, you allow it to be, yeah, then we got some issues. I kept
Yeah.
on hearing you say fear in the first like third of your, I don't fear these things, but I've set boundaries. So I think we as humans, to have
Yeah.
a better engagement utilizing technology, we have to have our boundaries. I turned
Yeah.
it off for her because we might be doing this at tree floor, right? I turned on my phone on vibration for the first time in years. I
yeah,
don't have any social media.
yeah,
And I like it that way, so it's kind of like this going back to the dumb phones.
Uh-huh.
I have patients who, they go, yeah, that's all I'm ever gonna use now is a dumb phone. But if we set our boundaries, like you said, take a walk outside.
yeah,
If you need to have your groceries delivered to your doors, okay, you got issues, probably if it's
Yeah.
across the street, right? So
Well, I think
we as
with
humans
what
have boundaries.
with what you're saying, I think it matters with what you grew up on, right? Like if you grew up before all of this came to be, you knew how it was before it, right? And you start to miss that the further you go down this road.
Maybe I don't miss.
And so I think I would say like try to spread that word a bit. Not to say, hey, get away from technology, but just like I knew how it was before it and how much more we were intentional and just present, right? And so
Let me just
finding that
clarify
balance.
something. I work on several platforms.
Yeah,
But I come in and I go out, I engage, I disengage, so setting those boundaries like you're, you know, and engage with that and without.
yeah, definitely. Thanks for
Appreciate
saying that. Yeah. Over here.
So when you were talking about possible decline of apps, do you see it possible for a user experience where I have so many apps on my phone and I throw them into categories like my travel,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. Like a combining of apps instead of having to go to so many different places for this and this and this, like
Yeah.
an app that will incorporate like multiple apps in it, or
Mhm.
just to stop app spread. I don't
Yeah.
know if that's a word, but
I think we're already kind of seeing that too. And I think that's something when thinking about an app, what's the reason behind this app? You know, you see a lot of apps that are just like web wrappers of a website to where it's like, do I really need this as an app to take up a bunch of space on my phone, build a bunch of clutter on my phone as well. But yeah, I definitely think that apps are going to go through kind of an evolution into simplicity. Like, again, we get chaotic before we simplify. And I'm excited for that. Like, I'm excited to see how we can think of even more efficiencies, because that's less efficient when you got to search for your app on your phone, right?
well, is it going more towards like QR codes? I like QR codes because I could just pull it up, use that site at that time for
Yeah.
that purpose, and then
Really, the QR code is really what
does
made the apps become obsolete a little bit.
The apps were necessary because you didn't have the speed, the internet speed, to be able to transfer the data you needed to
Yeah.
quickly use a site like that. So the app is installing all of that data on your phone, and so the processing power happens here. But now that the internet speeds are fast enough on your phone, they can do all of the things that a user experience guy wants to be able to do on the website on your phone, and it loads quickly and it's snappy and it's all the things that you want.
Yeah.
But 15 years ago, it's too slow, and it would have been, you would have done the old
Yeah.
watching your thing.
Just the load.
So you front load all of that by installing it on your phone, and that's how you get that snappy experience.
Yeah.
But it's fast enough now that you don't need it, and I think that you're right, that's why it's away from apps. You just don't need to do that anymore.
Totally. I got time for one more question.
I just have
Really
like
quick?
a comment about QR codes.
Yeah.
Like a PSA, I guess. They're starting to be used to like get data and from hackers and things. So I know people love QR codes, but like that's been gotten. So be really careful about what you scan with your phone because
Right.
it is an access point to your data also.
Yeah.
I think people aren't talking about it enough. It's super dangerous. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Really quick, but in the back there.
I was just wondering if you saw in the future
Yeah.
AI kind of becoming a small mini brain on your phone and taking away the need for some of those apps by just holding that information and searching for you.
Yeah.
When you express to them you have an interest in going to Italy and just curating and coming back to you and
That's
saying this is what.
definitely happening. Yeah, already. So AI is going to be the big thing. Already is the big thing. That's going to evolutionize. Bring us to the next evolution of technology. That's scary or more efficient. But thank you so much for having me, y'all. Thank you so much for coming. And have a beautiful tree fort and experience here. This is an amazing fest. So have a great day.
Yeah.